Go big, be ambitious, stop thinking small. I'm going to say this because it's important. People who talk too much to me about work-life balance. I believe if you're pursuing something, it's not actually work. It's a mission. And whether you turn up to do that for 20 hours a day, it isn't about balance, it's about belief.
Unicorn founders, do you think they're born or made? Today we have Media Royalty in the building. She is the CEO of Flight Story Studio, the powerhouse behind the Diary of the CEO podcast, hosted by Steven Bartlett, which has surpassed 1 billion streams across Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. It is the one and only Georgie Holt. Yay!
I will also say that I have only been part of the Diary of a CEO journey for the last sort of 14, 15 months. And there has been like the most exceptional team building that show with Steve over the last sort of 6 years.
Yeah.
And it's been such a joy and a privilege to get to work alongside them, to see how they work, to see their methodologies, how they kill the guessing, how they've built this extraordinary brand with Steve. And I think this will go out afterwards, but they're actually going to hit 10 million subscribers on YouTube on Monday. And I think they're just in this period of like huge reflection of like, you know, a lot of people joined when he had 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. People started this journey that early with him. So it's a huge milestone, and I will pass on your regards, because
they
do it for you. They do the work for you, and to make sure that you continue to feel inspired by the conversations that he has and shares with the world.
For sure, because even the Glucose Goddess, that podcast, I believe, changed my health.
Really?
You know, knowing what to eat, when to eat. You know, I always drink the vinegar water before.
Do?
Yeah.
Jessie's amazing, by the way. I have had also the privilege to meet her, and she is so inspiring and so mission driven, and really focused on making the world, again, kind of back to our mission, happier and healthier.
Yeah, and my mom was diagnosed with pre-diabetes.
Wow.
And she's been able to reverse it with the...
Really?
Yeah, through the... I told her about the methods from the Glucose Goddess, from that podcast.
Yeah, she's honestly doing incredible work, and I'm so glad to hear that story, and I'm sure I'll share it with her if I see her soon.
Yeah, so these conversations, like the power of conversation is real, and... Yeah, the Diary of CEO has been a massive part of my life. And I've also been liking Paul Brunson's...
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, like all these dating tips. He's the
coolest, the kindest person. And when we get into this, when we get into the kind of discussion on how to scale a really successful podcast, I'll tell you some of the big mistakes we made on that journey, because I think it would be really helpful how we like experiment and test and learn and iterate to get to this point now. I think Paul is scaling his podcast 9 times faster than Steven did at the same period in time.
Whoa.
So, and I'll talk about all of those methods a bit later, but yeah, he's super cool.
Yeah, and I want to get into that, because I believe when you joined the Diary of the CEO, you said that the Flight Studio was so data driven that you could make any podcast reach millions.
I probably did. I was probably that bold. I probably did, and I believe it.
Yeah, I saw something on LinkedIn. You've got all the data to do this, and how?
Wow. I think we were talking about this very recently. We're talking to a very high profile person in the US about working with them in Flight Story. They're very established in their field and very well known. And they asked a very similar question, actually. So you're asking the same question as A-list celebrities here. So like, how do you know? Yeah. What do you know and what do you do? And I think the way that we look at the world of media and scaling IP, which is often what we talk about when we're building brands and podcasts and media, it's the IP, the value of the IP that we're building, and how we energize a global fandom around it, is that we sort of see the data as another person in the room helping us make the decision. And it can be such an incredible person in the room. And in fact, you don't need to guess anymore, because this person, this partner, is in the room with you. And for creators or people thinking about scaling media or brand, is that the data is going to tell you a really important story about what you're building and actually how your product is being received by your audience. You might have a personal perspective, you may be very dedicated to the craft and what you're building and why you're building it, But actually, what you should be paying attention to is the customer. And that customer is your audience. And so the data they're providing you through all of the platforms you're publishing on to understand how they are receiving what you're making. And that's where the really important part of the work comes in, is actually spending time understanding that transaction between you as creator and what you're giving to your audience and how they are receiving it. And that is what the data story will tell you.
And for example, with Paul Brunson's We Need to Talk podcast, was there anything that the data showed you that was against maybe your intuition?
I look back and I think about the journey we went on with Paul, and the reason we identified Paul in the first place is that we had this incredibly unfair advantage, really, that Steven had interviewed. I mean, goodness me, he must be up to almost tipping into the thousands now of people. He's, having 2 shows a week. He's been doing it for 6 years, and his cadence has never really slow. I mean, he's been just prolific, I would say, in putting that podcast into the one, that commitment to the consistency, which is all about compounding growth, which allows you to get better data, which we'll come back to. But Paul, when we were looking at signing people to Flight Story Studio and thinking about the type of people that we wanted to work with, there were lots of different indicators that we were looking to find. And we looked at the data that was coming out of the Diary of a CEO in terms of how these guests were having an impact on the audience. And there were lots of different metrics that we were looking at. So we didn't have to guess. It wasn't vibes. And we used to joke that it's like a vibe strategy for most people acquiring IP or looking to work with talent. But it doesn't need to be vibes. And in fact, what we've now done is called our data strategy vibes. We've kind of said, it's the vibe strategy, which is about how we look at data and how it informs our choices. When we were looking to sign people to Flight Story Studio, we were looking at sort of certain metrics and data that was sort of being lit up in the back end of YouTube Studio, what it was saying on the social metrics, what it was saying in the community engagement. And we could see very early on that Paul C. Brunson was a powerhouse when it came to what the data was demonstrating. Couple that with the fact that he is a unique expert in his field. And then you wrap all the way around that. What are people always interested in? Love. Relationships, how they show up in the world as a partner and as a friend. So it was always going to be a conversation that was important. It was never going to be sort of like something that was interesting for a couple of months and then it might go away again. It's going to be something that's an always on part of the human experience. And if you're in happy relationships and you are a good person in return in the relationship, you're a happier, healthier person. So we know how instrumental love is. So we had all of these sort of frameworks in our decisioning, and Paul just absolutely blew up on all of the data metrics.
What were these data metrics?
Well, we're looking at views, we're looking at shares, we're looking at AVD, so how long someone was watching the episode for, because it shows us a sense of engagement and interest over a significantly long period of time. So when you're competing for time in someone's day and they're choosing to spend a really significant portion of their time with you, that tells you something. We're looking for community sentiment, engagement. We're looking at other aspects of trending topics and what's happening on Google and in the wider media ecosystem. And we could see all of those things were lining up with Paul. And then we went on a creative development path with him, which again was very data informed. We used all of the experts that had built the Diary of a CEO and asked them to compile all of their thoughts and sort of hypotheses about what love and relationships could do as a podcast and as a media vehicle. And they all put their sort of their own personal human IP into that creative treatment path, underpinned it by data. And then we sat in a room with Paul and we talked for about 3 hours, went through all of the data sets, went through all of the insights, and we came out at the end of that with the podcast called We Need to Talk.
Wow.
And that was the process.
What an extreme and detailed process. And when you came to him, was he down for it?
Yeah, he really was. I think what we find is that commitment to the 1% that the Diary of a CEO team and have probably become famous for now, and Steve talks about it all the time, and it's one of our really fundamental company values is a commitment to the 1%. And that's really looking for a 1% improvement that you can make in every single part of your workday, part of your creative output, part of your interactions with other human beings. And I noticed today when I came in that you had taken one of those 1% and played that back to me, which was playing my favourite artist when I walked into the room today, which is Dolly Parton. And I'm very grateful that you all know who she is, because I wasn't sure. And that was really a commitment to a philosophy or a hypothesis that if you put the guest in the best frame of mind and commit to making sure that their efforts to be in this chair and all of the efforts that the team have gone through to like research and book and spend time trying to find the best types of topics to talk to this person about, you want them to show up and be blown away by the entire experience they have. So that kind of commitment to the 1%, and Paul having now experienced that as a guest on the Diary of a CEO, he wanted to be part of that. He wanted to understand what it took for him to feel like that as a guest on the show, and the fact that he might be able to recreate that as the host of his own show was, I think, and I hope, and I now know, something that was really exciting to him. And we've got an amazing journey with Paul. I'm sure he won't mind me saying, is that, you know, we are committed to failing at Flight Story Studio as well. Like, I know it's a weird thing to say. I mean, some people don't like that as a methodology, but we are committed to failing because we're committed to experimentation. So what we do when we work with talent creators, podcasters, companies, is that we are going to keep failing because we're going to keep experimenting. And I often think that you don't learn very much when you succeed, because it doesn't give you great data. It often just blows up your ego, which is the worst possible data set you can be working with, which is the data that your ego is telling you is like, well, that was good, so that means I'm good, so therefore I'm going to keep pursuing that because that's what I think. Versus going, how many times can I fail today? What will that tell me? And then how do I iterate on those failures to keep those compounding improvements over time? So we made so many failures when we launched Paul's podcast. But the reason we commit to that is because you don't have to guess. So we can test so many things. So, for example, when we were working with Paul in the early stages, he told a really compelling story that all the time when he works on other TV shows or formats, when they present him to the world as a host or as a presenter, he has always got this huge grin on his face. And
he's a smiley guy.
He's a really smiley guy. And he has said
I'm just writing stuff
police, he has said to people like, you know, I get it, but like, do we have to keep going that version of me? Like, do we have to keep going with this, like, I am that person. He's truly that person, by the way. He's such a happy and peaceful and wonderful person to be around. But like it's just such an easy thing to do, and to not talk about another person's racial experience without experiencing myself. It's like, he's so obvious to make the black guy a super smiley, happy guy. And it's like, it's so easy to just follow that route.
It's been done,
It's been done 100 times, and that's how I always get presented. And he's like, I don't know whether that is something I now enjoy. So we're like, say no more, Paul. Say no more. We are going to test this. So we shot about, I think, on the launch day, 20 to 30 pictures of him, just like headshots.
20 to 30.
And then we tested hundreds. So we tested the title, the name of the show. We tested what the artwork would look like. But most importantly, we tested his facial expression. And guess which came out top?
The one where he's serious.
The one where he is serious.
Yeah, because we need to talk as always, like.
Exactly. So he's showing up as a serious host, as a serious partner in a conversation. He's taking you seriously. When you say the words, we need to talk, like the immediate reaction is like, uh-oh.
What have I done?
But guess what happens when you do? Really profound things can change when you have a conversation. So if he's like on the artwork smiling, we need to talk. It's not necessarily giving you the indication that this is going to be an interesting and compelling conversation. It could be a comedy show. It could it indicates you maybe in the wrong way. And it was so important, I think, in that early stage with Paul to like validate his own personal hypothesis that perhaps, just perhaps,
he doesn't have to be that guy.
He doesn't have to be that guy. And it is as compelling for an audience to see him in a different way. And we proved that out in the data. So again, you don't need to guess. We could go and test. But I think that really set a framework up and a playbook that he trusted us to keep experimenting and keep testing and telling him why and what we were doing and what it meant, and it's been an amazing journey. But we failed so much, but we learned so much more in failing.
So do you think that it's not every podcast you can make big? It really depends on the host as well, because Paul was a big part of making We Need to Talk. Would you say big, or could it have been anyone? Because of all the data you have, you could have made it
We're testing that right now. So I'd suggest that we are, if we were positioning ourselves as a record label, which is sometimes how we think, that we work with artists and creators. Obviously there's emerging artists that no one knows, but you can bring their expertise or their very unique superpower to the world. Or there's people who've become more established over time, and they are certainly known and trusted for having a specific voice or level of expertise in an area. And then obviously you've got your global superstars that have already very much dedicated their life to achieving certain things and are well understood and known for that. So we kind of think about working with people who are at different stages of that journey, and then how we can deploy our methodologies and frameworks to accelerate their own personal goals, dreams and ambitions as well. Because that's the other thing, is when we're looking to work with particular creators or entrepreneurs or founders, they have to be ambitious. They have to meet our ambition, because I often think the scale of the opportunity meets that scale of the challenge. You don't have a hugely ambitious, audacious, wild dream and for a second think it's going to be easy to get there. And if you do, you're probably not the people that we want to partner with. Doesn't mean that you're wrong. It's probably not where we're going, because we are going to be so ambitious with you. We often talk about being at the sort of the foothills of legendary.
Wow.
But we never think about achieving legendary, because as soon as you start to think that you are going to be legendary, or then you've lost, it's over. So we always think no matter how, even with the Diary of a CEO, hitting 10 million subscribers, being the second biggest podcast in the world now, we say foothills of legendary.
And there's two things I want to touch on there. So the people watching our podcast are these hugely ambitious entrepreneurs. And what makes you meet someone and be like, I know you're ambitious? What are these qualities that they have?
Oh, that's a great question. It's something that we like to call, and other people have called it, with or without you energy.
With or without you. Ooh.
That my idea, my vision, my belief in myself, this idea, this company, this brand, I'm doing it anyway. And you can either come with me or don't. There is that type of energy in someone. It's quite hard to pinpoint down, but it makes you want to chase it. Does that make sense? That makes sense. You want to chase them or chase it with you, and they're wildly ambitious, and you can see the evidence of their ambition in their work. You can see that they're putting, the stories they tell you will tell you something, they're putting in the hours. They are sacrificing huge things in their life to achieve what they think they can. It isn't just, I've been thinking about doing this thing, I've been trying a couple of hours a week. They're I haven't seen my friends for 6 months. I am building and I'm building and I'm building, and I'm doing this anyway. So if you want to come with me, I would love that. But if you don't, then I'm going to go anyway. And there is something about that, and I know what it is now, and you've got it.
Oh, thank you.
You do.
Oh, thank you so much. Do you know what? I was going to say that I don't know if I have got it, because I've sat with entrepreneurs and what they tell me they're doing scares me.
That's good.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Really?
You should feel scared. I feel scared every single day.
Really?
All the time.
Because, they're doing these things that, and I'm sure you're doing it too, they're not sleeping, and, they're
I wouldn't say that's always healthy.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I have to say that for parental guidance.
Yeah. And that stuff, I'm just that's...
I think if you want...
I want to be but could I do that?
But I'd maybe turn that back and say, have you found the thing that makes you want to do that? Does it make, it's a balance. Even at 45, I am wildly ambitious. I think it's one of the greatest risks of life is not fulfilling your full potential. And if you're not thinking about it every single minute of every day, then perhaps it isn't the thing. But what it tells me is you might have the energy for it. Is that you're I watch people and they scare me, but it excites me, and I would like to feel like that about something in my work, in my personal belief system, that I can dedicate my life in the way that they have. You're not looking at them and going, yeah, that's not for me. You're looking and going,
what can I do?
That's scary, but like I want to be that obsessed. I want to be thinking about it and talking about it every single day.
Yeah.
And I know what the feeling of being obsessed feels like in my body, and I'm sure you'll have feel it in your body too. It feels very like prefrontal cortex. Like I feel like I'm almost in a tunnel vision, that I'm like,
you care about details people don't care about.
Exactly. I'm not really aware of my surroundings sometimes, because I'm like so in it. And then suddenly you sort of come back into the room and like, wow, I lost myself to this work, to this task, to this idea. And when that feeling is starting to come in your body, like you're like, oh, okay, then this might be the path for me. Yeah. And creator entrepreneurs, editors, anyone, like you are the product owner. So you should be obsessing about the user experience of your product. Yeah. So like, what is every part of my customer journey like to get to me? How do my customers feel when they are in my world? What do I want them to feel? So you are absolutely a product owner. But the product is media, and the product is you.
Media. Okay.
So the sort of methodologies and principles of scaling companies, products, and ideas are pretty much the same. You just need to think about the reframing of who you are: a product, you are a brand, you're IP, you're an owner, you're a company.
And there's, on that note, what do you think about, being obsessed with the details? Let's say sometimes I'm looking at a podcast and I want certain bits trimmed out. Maybe it's only 3 seconds or whatever it is, but it's like delaying maybe how many times the podcast can go out. How do you manage being obsessed with details and then sticking to
urgency and obsession?
And getting it out there, for people to see.
I think the two things can happen at the same time.
Really?
I think you can be obsessed with urgency and obsessed with detail. What you need to find to put around you are people that are equally as obsessed with you to do the same thing. So compromising on putting product into the market because of a pursuit of perfection, probably to me, isn't going to give you the data you want. So like, what are you trying to pursue? Data about your product and what the audience is feeling about it, or a perfect product that you're happy with. Now, those two things might not happen at the same time. As you grow and expand, those two things will absolutely line up, and you'll be able to build teams and peoples and skills around you, or skills yourself, that you can put a perfect, what you think is technically excellent, into the world with urgency.
Wow.
But that's about scaling. That's about scaling a company, a product, an idea. Like when you look at these early founder stories, the product, from what we understand it to be today, is not what it was 10 years ago. When you think about the WCO, Steven started recording, I think, in his bathroom or his cupboard. I can't remember which one it is now, but that's where he started. But he committed to the consistency.
Right. So the data is not about perfection. It's about knowing what people want. That's what you should be.
But you will have first principles that you will not compromise on. Yes. So like there'll be, whilst you, in the early stages of putting a product into market, you might have a first principle. It goes out every single week, or it goes out twice a week. That is my first principle.
It's every Friday,
Every Friday, and I'm committed to that. Now, what I'll learn about my product is what people are enjoying, because I'll obsess about the data and the customer experience of my product. And then I'll start to make iterative improvements and 1% gains and experiments around the areas that I think are winning. And then I'll keep testing and validating and failing, and that's where I'll spend my time. So you might say, actually, what I'm seeing in my podcast, people only want 20 minutes. That is like the drop-off time is 20 minutes. So why am I putting something into the world that's 2 hours long when they're leaving after 20 minutes? So I'm editing something that's 2 hours when actually the first 20 minutes are the most important. Or I'm looking at the data behind my social clips, and I can see that this particular topic and theme is really powerful for engagement and conversion to the podcast. So you spend more time talking about that. So you spend more time understanding where you do apply that energy and effort and that absolutely uncompromising commitment to quality, because perhaps what you're doing is too long, and if you cut it down, maybe you'll get more interesting data and can spend more time on quality, and you can start to experiment.
Let's say a podcast has 200 views.
Yes.
Is it because, I just don't know whether it's because it's been blasted everywhere.
Well, then you have to put experiments in place to test that.
Right, so we need to be measuring, keeping variables the same.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to now do the same thing, but do something different, less, more, and see what changes.
Okay.
So you do 200 views, and then you're like, okay, well, I put more social behind that. So is that what did the 200 views? It's quite a big variation to make, but you could look at maybe doing one less post, or looking at the post that did really well from your social and doing more posts like that around the new episode. And it's actually, is it I did more social, or was it a very particular type of social post that did very well? And it's that type of clip that is performing, and I'm going to try that again, but I'm maybe going to do something slightly different. So it's like setting conditions for an experiment, and quite often not changing too many things at once. It's changing one or two, looking at what you think worked, changing one or two variables, committing to an improvement or a test within that variable, and then looking at what the data is telling you.
Right, okay, go about it that way. Okay,
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's perfect. Thank you so much. So we're going to play a little game of Never Have I Ever to spill the tea. So if you have done it, you're going to drink your tea.
Okay.
So, never have I ever had a disagreement with Steven Bartlett. Spill the tea.
We disagree all the time. It is the most important thing. And I wouldn't necessarily talk about it as a disagreement. It is the most important aspect of any working relationship, to passionately believe in your ideas and hypotheses, but then be absolutely open to having them challenged at the same time. There is nothing better, and it's not just with Steve, it's with Christiana as well, that we will sometimes be often pursuing the same outcome, but sitting in slightly different positions on that team. There is no use in Stephen and I, or Christiana and I, agreeing all the time.
Yeah.
Because that just means that we either have high ego about our ideas, that we're just like, well, we're always right, so, you know, whatever we say is correct, and we just always agree with each other, and it's very passive, and it actually speaks to high ego. So we disagree all the time because we're actually very low ego, but we're high performance. Disagreement is actually an incredible mechanic to a better idea and a better outcome, because it means that you are passionately testing your thesis or a hypothesis about what you think may or may not work. So it's one of the most important things about growing and scaling a company and a professional relationship is having the ability to disagree and enjoy it.
Yeah, and could you give us an example where you disagreed?
The chairs in the podcast studios. So we put 2 chairs in Paul's studio, and we'd spent a lot of time choosing these chairs, like the look, the dynamic, the seating position. And Steve was filming Dragon's Den at the time, and we sent him some pictures of the studio on WhatsApp. I looked away from my phone and I looked back, and there was about 20 messages. What are these chairs? They look uncomfortable, the people don't look right, they're not going to have a great conversation. So he has this very strong hypothesis that the type of chair that we're sat on will be a really key indicator of the type of conversation we're about to have, and it should be exceptionally comfortable for people to sit in for a period of time, because obviously he'll be in the chair for 6-7 hours sometimes recording. And he had learned on that journey from the Diary of the CEO, and he was particularly focused on the fact that the chairs had armrests on them. Because if your arms are rested, what happens is you start to lean and you start expressing yourself because you have somewhere to put your hands. And the data had showed him when he was developing the Diary of a CEO that actually when someone is moving their hands and expressing themselves, the retention or the engagement or people watching that clip more than in a clip where people weren't moving was evident. So he's like, you've put people in an uncomfortable seat, so they're kind of leant back like that, so they already look quite passive. Then you've put armrests on them, so they're not being able to move, and then they're leaning. So it's like you're already demonstrating in that seat that the guest looks like they sort of don't care so much because they're like sat back. And he's like, when you're on the Diary of a CEO, you're very upright, you're pulled in, you're upright. And he's like, it's like you're going to go and have a slightly uncomfortable conversation at the kitchen table at like 2 a.m. because you're going to go and talk about something important. So we disagreed about the chairs, and now we call it the Museum of Failed Chairs, and there's a few of them. And in fact, so much so that we held an event and we put Steve, Davina, and Paul in their three chairs on the stage, and they all sat in their chairs, and we talked about why those chairs were decided. And with Davina, it needed to be more relaxed. You sort of needed to like be able to tuck your feet under, because she was like doing that, but it still needs someone to sit up in, that they weren't leaning and slouching. So that was the disagreement we had about the chairs, but it's absolutely a commitment to the 1% and experimentation. So the chairs you see now in Paul's show aren't the chairs that we started with.
And I love that you care about these details so much so to disagree.
He left filming Dragon's Den
to come
and talk to me about the chairs.
Yeah.
And I love him for that, because he cared so much that he stopped filming to come and have that conversation with me. And we didn't agree. And then we tested, and then he was right. But he might not have been, and he was also okay with that.
And the next Never Have I Ever is, never have I ever cut an episode from the Diary of the CEO.
Yes, I have.
Ooh, what episode?
I can't tell you. The guest hasn't shown up they haven't given the best account of themselves, and that's on us. That's our fault. For whatever reason, we always make it about us, never about them. And our commitment is to put the best possible conversation into the world, so they can talk about their expertise or ideas in the best possible way. And if we don't think that's happened, it won't go out.
How many have you cut?
8, 7.
And you just tell them, sorry,
We explain. We make it about us, and we invite them back quite often to come and do it again.
Never have I ever experienced imposter syndrome, even though you have 25 plus years experience in this industry.
I do not like that word. Words. Because it's just called feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's so many cliches. Imposter syndrome, because it suggests that there's a finished article or a final destination, that you will have. I don't even know, imposter syndrome. Like, I don't even know what the alternative is. Like, I am complete. I am done. I am the full ticket. I am A+, 10 out of 10, the best version of myself in this moment in time or in this day. That is impossible.
So you should always have imposter, like you should always be.
But it's like not even
imposter syndrome.
But it's like, what is it? I'm always learning. There are days when I feel like I don't know enough. And I feel like I'm out of my depth or out of my comfort zone. I'm like, well, I probably need to go and do a bit more research and a bit more learning and understand why I felt like that. So it's more like imposter syndrome, like I feel out of my depth, or I feel discomfort in this moment. It's a signal to me that I need to learn, change, adapt. But I think imposter syndrome is just this idea that at some point in time you're going to be complete and finished. Like, how boring.
Yeah.
If I'm like, oh, I'm done, 10 out of 10, I might as well just stop.
Yeah. Brilliant. And 2 more never have I ever. Never have I ever had a dream guest I've not been able to book yet.
Oh, yeah.
Who can you say?
Personally, I'd love to book Dolly Parton.
Oh, imagine
having DP.
Yeah.
Lady Parton, I would love to book her. I think her life story is exceptionally rich, and there's so many important human truths in it. So for me, like, that would be my ultimate fan moment, I think.
Imagine Dolly Parton on the. Whose would she be on?
I think I'd put her with Paul.
Paul, nice.
Yeah, because he's just so. I think that both Americans, I think they'd be able to like share some lived experiences, and I know sort of Paul's musical taste and what he enjoys. It's so rich and diverse. I think they'd find a lot of commonality in that lived experience, and I'd like to learn about her love and life. Yes. And she was was with the same partner for many years, so I could love to know all of that.
Yeah, her husband recently passed away.
Yeah, that's right.
That's really sad. Yeah. And the final one is, never have I ever wanted to start my own podcast.
No.
Really?
No. I believe that my work is to help others achieve greatness, and I think that that's what I'm here to do. I think ultimately my job is to, or my work is, my passion is human stories, and I think I've built a skill set to enable those to be in the world and to really inspire everyone everywhere to pursue a more fulfilling life. And I think that I'm the person to help make that happen, not the person to do it.
Fair enough. And now for the next section of the podcast, we have a bubble tea personality analysis. So I've been doing this for not so long, but for a bit of time now, that I feel like when people tell me their bubbleology order,
I knew that was going to be a thing.
Oh, did
I was
you?
just like, I'm so sure that you're going to like,
Yeah.
I was like, uh-oh.
yeah, if you tell me your bubble tea order, I can tell you about yourself.
Go on.
So you wanted strawberry. So that told me you were, sweet and caring, exuding warmth and kindness, because, strawberry's got that nostalgic feel. It wasn't like, taro or matcha, had that like sweet vibe. And I just thought someone who selects something sweet is also very sweet. So yeah.
I ordered it and I thought, my God, that is not very interesting. But I thought, you know what? Keep it classic.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to focus on you, not a different flavour, something I was like, what if I didn't like it? And I didn't want to be like turning up and thinking wish I'd ordered something else. I'm like, I know I like strawberry. It's always good. So I can come here and focus on you. So that was my commitment to the 1% that I made.
Oh, amazing. I can't believe you even thought of that.
Because I thought if I ordered, there was some amazing flavours on there. And I was like, oh, that sounds so interesting. But I thought, what happens if it distracts me from the conversation? So if I order a strawberry, I know I'll be happy with that, and then we can have a great conversation.
Strawberry's still not that popular, actually.
Really?
No one's ordered strawberry. It's only matcha, taro, jasmine. We've all ordered like these very common flavours. So when you said strawberry, yeah, it did exude sweetness. And I know you've also got a head of happiness.
We do.
What is that about? Like, it's just part of this whole caring, sweet energy.
Yeah. So I think if we're putting our vision for the company into the world, is we want to elevate the stories, build the communities, and invest in the visionary entrepreneurs who are going to inspire happy, healthy humanity, we have to inspire that in our people.
Nice.
Because companies ultimately are people. That is really the definition of a company, as a group of people. And if we're focused on creating a generational company, we need to make sure that what we're saying about what we want to build is also what we're focused on putting into our people. And obviously there's lots of ways you can do that. Lots of companies put in perks and benefits. There's all sorts of ways that you can layer things into people's working life that makes them feel better about having to work. Nice. That is the wrong way around for me. I want to make it it's all of our responsibilities, but someone's obsession in our company that our people are happy and healthy. And that is what I want them to wake up think. I think about it every single day, but there's other things that can come along and distract me. But I want that person to be obsessively committed to that outcome every single day. And
what made you care about this? I mean, obviously it seems like kind of trivial, like of course everyone should care about someone's happiness, but deep down, why, but not everyone's happy, not everyone really cares how someone's doing. Why do you think you care?
Because I think it comes down to being motivated and feeling that you matter, because it can quite easily, and it's something that happens quite often as companies scale and get bigger, like the founding team starts to expand, more people come into the company, different energies, different ambitions. Although my big question I always ask in an interview is, what's your dream? Because it's really important for me to understand aligned incentives. So I will be interviewing someone, for example, for a video editing job, and I will ask them what their dream is. And if they tell me that their dream is to win an Oscar, I will be thrilled.
Oh, fantastic.
Because that is an aligned incentive. Because they're
to be the best,
best at what they do. And they are pursuing a choice and an ambition that is very lined up to the job that I'm currently talking to them about. So that to me is an aligned incentive and an aligned goal. Everything else I do around that is to make you the happiest, healthiest person to pursue that goal, because if you are, your motivation is going to remain really high. And we might just end up putting out an Oscar-winning movie together. Like, we can get you to that place if you're feeling motivated and in pursuit of something. When I interview someone and they say, I'm here to be a video editor, but my goal is to actually launch a bubble tea company.
Ooh, that's not aligned. Yeah.
That's not an aligned incentive. Honestly, I'm like, that's brilliant. I really do wish you well, but I don't think that this particular role that we're interviewing for is going to allow you to pursue that goal, pursue that dream. So even from day one, our incentives are slightly misaligned, and over time, compounding it will get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think when I think about the energies and efforts I want the people in my company to have focused on them to be happy and healthier, I want to focus on the person who's here to do the video editing job, has the dream of being an Oscar-winning director. And if I give them everything they need to pursue that ambition and that ambitious life in our company, then that is worth my time and effort and energy. And that is why I would put someone as a head of happiness and health into my company, because that is what I ultimately want everybody to feel. And our ambitions are aligned, our incentives are aligned.
Yeah, brilliant. And we want to dig in. I got this question from the Steven Bartlett podcast.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Was there anything as a child that made you obsessed with media? Could you tell us about child Georgie?
Well, I'm a lot older than you. So when I didn't have social media in my life until I was 27.
Oh, wow.
So Facebook was the first platform that integrated from a social media point of view, and I was 27 years old. So I lived an entire existence, an entire life, and I'm certain some of you are like not even close to 27 yet. When I think back to what made me what made me obsessed with media, is I actually had very limited availability. So there was 4 TV channels. I remember Channel 5 launching, and I don't know whether I remember Channel 4 launching it. It might have been a false memory, but I definitely remember Channel 5 launching. So there was 4 TV channels, and then there was magazines. And one of the greatest joys as a child was being given pocket money or earning some pocket money by cleaning my room and going to the local newsagents and choosing a magazine. I remember it was sort of one of the first adult experience of having agency and understanding that working towards something, receiving something in return, i.e. some money, because I'd done a task that I'd been asked to do and I worked hard at it. And I could go and buy something, and my choice was to go and buy a magazine. And there were, lots of different choices out there, Just 17, like the sort of the more teeny magazines. And I loved what I saw on those pages, and they were incredibly aspirational to me. And I fell in love with the way that they told stories, the way they spoke to me, the way that I felt seen and understood by pieces of paper, essentially. And someone could write words that had an impact on me and made me want to think about my life in different ways. And I knew that I wanted to be part of the company, or I didn't even know it was a company. I wanted to work there.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so I work to earn this £1. I've used that £1 to buy this magazine. I now want to work to get to work at that magazine. So it's quite a sort of linear path for me.
Yeah.
And that was it. I just fell in love with the experience of immersing myself into worlds and fashion and storytelling. And at the very early stages, some of these magazines were the first experience of how you learn about sex, because there ain't no social media telling you about it. And your parents would, I had very, very liberal parents, so they very much introduced me to concepts early on. I'm very grateful to that. You learn it just about at school, very basic stuff. Then how do I learn what to do, and who's going to talk to me at my level about it? And you buy magazines, and there was a great magazine called More magazine. They used to have Position of the Fortnight.
What?
So every 2 weeks that they would, every 2 weeks there would be a great magazine called, it was kind of sexy and fun, and so it was aimed at sort of, I would say, late teens, or and we'd be so excited about getting it, because we'd be like, oh, we're going to get a Position of the Fortnight, and we would all look at the picture of 2 cartoon characters having sex, illustrations, and they would have the Position of the Fortnight, and that is how we learn about sex.
And that for you felt really powerful.
So powerful. Because
Wow.
it was either your friends telling you because they'd already done it and they were trailblazing in that way. We're like, right, this is how you do it. And this is what I've learned. And I didn't like that. And I didn't like this. And then, where else do you go for that? There was, porn was in, again, this is a complete digression. But when you think about the accessibility to porn now, any of us could go on our phones now and start watching pornography. It's just not something that is have any, emotional, physical distance from. When I was growing up, what was at the top shelf of the magazine rack. That was it was horrible videos at the back of the video store. You go in there and you'd be like, oh God, don't look at that guy in the back of the video store, because we all know what he's getting. And then magazines on the top shelf.
Wow, so it's like a translation of human expression
Yeah,
from magazines to now.
exactly. And I just remember thinking, I want to work for something that, is helping young women figure their lives out in a way that feels really relatable, that isn't sort of soap operas, it isn't your mum or your mates. It's something that feels like a friend, but it's something you can actually go and work in and at. I was like, I'm obsessed, I have to get there.
Really?
Yeah.
And sorry, I don't know whether to digress into position of the week. However, no, but it's
can
more,
go there.
It's to relate to the podcast.
Go.
It's how, that trinket of information someone had that you remembered. Is there anything, this is a bit of me selfishly asking, we could do with the podcast that, I think Abube was mentioning drink of the week, like how could we bring this in that have that little thing that we could...
those little repeatable formats,
yes,
we'd call them.
Formats,
So something the audience looks forward to every single week. They're not going to get something new every week, but there's a repeatable format.
Yeah, like how do you think we could do it? Maybe if we could just chat.
You just go, if we look back to what I was saying before, what do you think?
Experiment.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know the answer. You could
just see what people want.
and you can test them social, so you don't actually need to put them in the podcast. You could say, I know there's a segment coming up where you do a little bit of like quick fire.
Yeah.
But like,
you really know,
research.
Yeah,
like I play it, again, my 1% is committing to be the best version of myself when I turn up here and hopefully give you what you need to like put into the world and get good data from. So I hope you do. But you could say to the person afterwards, we're going to do we're going to do quick fire. We're going to do, I think Never Have I Ever is the other one. Like, I'm going to do 5 things with you. It's going to take no more than a minute each. And I'm going to record all of them. And then we're going to test an experiment to see which one does best. And we're going to do them as social clips. And we're going to put them into the world. And we're going to see what gets the most. And that's the repeatable format. So you keep coming back to, you can just test hundreds of them. And then you can just make that repeatable format something actually that gets even bigger than what you thought it was, and it becomes its own thing.
Right, because that's what we really want to work on, like what repeatable formats work. Because we normally have all these little segments, and some just get cut out just because of time. But we've never really tested what actually people want to see. We could be cutting out.
Yeah, you could be. You don't know. You could be cutting out absolute gold. I'd almost be going back into the archives. You don't need to record anything new. Recutting that stuff and then testing it as social clips out of your channel, wherever you want to do it, and see whether it has any traction with an audience.
Yeah.
And then just test loads of different things and keep going.
Because we're just guessing at the moment, like what works.
Don't have to guess
You
anymore.
don't have to guess, yeah.
You do not have to guess, and make it a game. All of you in this room, like, you'll have different format ideas. Like, make it a game. Who's going to have the one that's got the best engagement? Get everyone to bring 20 new format ideas to a editorial meeting. Run it like a company, run it like a brand. You can have an editorial meeting. You're going to bring 20 new formats. Everyone's committed to doing that. Everyone's accountable. Everyone have to bring 5 each. Yeah. And then you're going to test. You're going to commit to decide, filtering through the out of 10. You're going to test 10.
And then see what works.
And then get the data back.
So that's our project for next week.
Yeah.
And then we do have a quiz. I'm not sure if you've... this is a segment of the podcast. Who knows if people are interested or not? We'll have to find out so we could...
You're going to test it?
Yeah, we'll test it and see if people are actually interested. So, we know that entrepreneurs are really competitive people, and I assume that you're probably pretty competitive as well.
I am. No one likes to play games with me at Christmas in the family because I'm so competitive.
Good, I love that. You know, people that don't play to win. Like, my parents don't play to win. I'm like, I don't want to be in your team because this is...
Yeah, my husband and I cannot play a game. Yeah, we're both very competitive people.
Oh, you're both competitive? Oh, fair. That's good.
He thinks I cheat.
No, that's what losers say. Oh, no, I don't mean to call you.
Love that.
Wait, sorry, no.
Did you hear that?
No,
it's so true.
I didn't mean to call
can
your
I
husband
just say?
Sorry, I should not have said that about your husband. Sorry.
You can say whatever you like. He's absolutely...
yeah.
He's
no, because,
absolutely...
Do you know what? Because I just felt that in my bones.
But
when
there
people
you go.
think you cheat and you're just like, I just work at what I just...
But what a great positioning statement. That's what losers say. Yeah. Like, it's... Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe I'm just better than you. And maybe that's what you can't accept, so you call me a cheater.
Exactly. That's where my mind went. But sorry, Georgie's husband. You're a cheater.
Sorry, G.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to test your podcast industry knowledge. Yeah. You know, some entrepreneurs have come on the podcast and like, you have to take that question out because I should know that.
My investors will be very concerned that I did not know the answer to that.
But I think you will be fine.
All right.
So this is
ready.
A global podcast quiz. So not for UK trends globally. So what percentage of podcast listeners have purchased a product after hearing about it on a podcast? Is it A, 23%, B, 45%, C, 60%, or D, 75%?
Whose research is it?
ChatGPT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go 44.
45B?
45.
That is wrong.
What was it?
According 60.
60, okay.
So it's actually a bit more than...
That's good, that's high. We love that podcast work. Advertisers, brands, pay attention.
That's very good, isn't it, to know that
60, yeah. Uh-huh.
And is there any insight you've got on that? I know that you realise compared to America, the UK market, people aren't utilising podcast advertising as much.
It's because they trust you. Because you trust the host. You form a deep relationship. When you spoke about it at the beginning, you know, you've loved the Diary of a CEO, you've gone to the live events, you've probably bought the book, you know, you are evidence of that. Because, and the reason that happens is that Steve and the team on the Diary of a CEO are absolutely committed to you. Yeah. They are absolutely committed to you, giving you the best conversation that they can give you as an audience participant or a part of his community. So therefore, you feel that commitment, you build trust with that person.
Trust, yeah.
And you talked about Jesse, you've talked about the guests, you trust the guests that they bring on because you trust him, and these people are experts in their field and you're following these methods. So like, you're evidence of this deeply trusting relationship that can happen when a human being builds a brand. And a human becomes the brand, and we talk about human IP, which is a really strange thing to say, but it's human IP. And you know, so many interesting articles and sort of pieces of research. Scott Galloway wrote a really good article about it, about that we believe humans now much more than we believe companies and brands. Because of our natural human instinct, we are more likely to trust one another. And you know, we've spent the last 2 hours trying to build trust with each other, and like, you know, are you open? Are you friendly? Like, obviously there's lots of body language cues that you can do that help build trust really quickly. But it really comes down to trust. And I think that podcasts and podcasters and hosts of these shows have these incredible, I mean, they're essentially parasocial relationships, but they build it with you.
I feel like I'm friends with Steven, and you know, Steven doesn't know who I exist.
He
so it's like, how do you
that.
feel about? But I wondered, would he love that when so many people probably feel that way about him?
Yes, he would.
Would he?
He would absolutely love to think that he has made a friend,
Really?
or someone thinks that, you know, they are a friend with him because of the effort and energy that he puts into the show. Because what a beautiful thing to have.
Right, because I thought, you know, when it's not that parasocial, he's probably thinking, whoa, this is like intense. And I'm sitting here every week listening to his voice for hours. Okay, so
that's why he shows up every single week, twice a week, to keep doing it, because he absolutely loves it. And one of the biggest reasons that he loves it is that there is he's an extremely hopeful and optimistic person about the world and about life. And I think he wants people to have enough information and understanding to feel like that too. And if he can bring friends with him on the way, or his community of fans and listeners and audiences, then he would love to think of the fact that you think of him as a friend, because it means that all of that energy and effort has been worthwhile.
Brilliant. And you also mentioned something on that point about eroding trust. There was this massive scandal. Scandal's the wrong word, but you know, they said Steven Bartlett's bringing on people that making health claims that people don't. I don't fully agree with the BBC article at all, but how do you feel when big articles like that, I saw that everywhere on LinkedIn, do you think that erodes the trust between Steven and the people he brings on and the people that listen?
It hasn't shown that it has at all in any way. And again, I think you have to think about the incentives of the people who are writing these articles and what the journalists are trying to show in that piece of work. And what I think is really important to consider is quite often how people, communities, science, ideas move forward.
Yes, it's like challenging.
Is people look at data and they see it in a different way or a new way, or they perhaps challenge the conventional norms around how that data or evidence has been interpreted previously. Now that can make people feel uncomfortable because you're challenging the norms or what has been well understood before. But what happens if we don't have that discussion, if we don't bring new ideas and thoughts and discussions and topics and interpretations into the world, we may not move forward in extremely important ways. I kind of look at the moon landings, or someone sitting on the earth and looking at the sky and thinking, I think we might be able to get there, and I'm going to figure out how we get there. Or the idea that for a long time people thought, and there are still some people who believe this, and that's absolutely, people can believe what they like, it's fine, that the earth was flat.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
That was it. And someone one day said, I don't know whether it is, and I'm going to get in a boat and I'm going to go and find out whether that's true.
And I bet that was met with loads of resistance.
Exactly. Yeah. And you think about the advancements in medicine and science, it is constant discussion and disruption of existing norms and quote unquote truths.
Yes, truths, yeah.
Truths, and like, it's fine, we can call it a truth and underlay. And attempting to challenge that idea because they believe that there is a better way, or a new, we're not necessarily living to our fullest potential, understanding a topic in its completeness. And for us, this show and the work that we do is we want to bring really open-minded people together, and for them to go and make their own decisions and decide how they want to take that information into their own lives and pursue their own fulfilling life in return. I think it's that idea that we don't necessarily treat our audiences as children, we treat them as adults, where you can decide. You can decide. You can turn it off, you can not pay attention, you can listen to something else. You can choose. You have agency in your own life. What this is about: open-minded discussion, freedom of expression, and you choose.
Freedom of expression, for sure. That's brilliant. Thank you. And the next quiz question. How many active podcasts exist worldwide in 2024? So is it A, 500K, B, 1 million, C, 3 million, or D, 5 million?
5 million.
5 million. Yeah, that's crazy. And the thing is, they say every man and his dog has a podcast. So what would you say for people who want to get into the podcast space?
Get into the podcast space.
Even though there's so many. Yeah.
How many movies, TV channels, books? I mean, goodness me, and there's how many books have been written?
How many millions?
Millions and millions and millions. How many songs have ever been written? Go onto Spotify, how many songs, just start. You will have a unique point of view on the world. You have a unique set of lived experiences, skills that might just inspire someone else and speak to somebody else's interests. And guess what you might go and build? Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. So get into podcasting.
Brilliant. And
but make it video first.
Make it video first, yes. And number 3 is, what is the most popular podcast genre globally?
Yeah.
True crime, business, comedy, or the news?
Oh,
the UK is different than a bit globally. Yeah.
Globally, now I'm going to qualify that I know that the frequency and cadence of news podcasts is bigger because they tend to be daily. So it depends on how you qualify. And then you've got comedy entertainment is the most popular topic and the most popular genre in podcasting.
Is it?
And then I've got, what was the first one? True crime?
Or business?
I'm going to say comedy.
For the UK, it's comedy and entertainment.
Okay.
But globally, apparently, it's true crime.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. I feel like true crime's more of an American thing.
I love true crime.
Do you? Yeah. Like the death and... Yeah.
Oh, I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's my guilty pleasure.
And the final one is, how do people most discover new podcasts? Is it A, social media, B, word of mouth, C, podcast app recommendations, or D, ads?
Social media. Or recommendation, personal recommendation.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant, fantastic. All right, so I should be totaling up your scores.
Don't think I did very well there.
What did you get? Yeah.
B, C?
Yeah.
C plus, B minus?
C plus, B minus.
B minus, okay.
Alrighty. So then we want to go in with 25 years of experience. What's the best business advice you have for young founders?
Take the really big swings.
Whoa, what does that mean?
Go big.
Go big.
Be ambitious. Stop thinking small. Take the really big swing.
What would a really big swing mean?
You going out and booking and pursuing the biggest guest you could possibly have on your podcast.
You.
No, no. But like, you took a swing that day.
To be fair, yeah.
You did. We met. We had never met before. He said, I have a podcast. I said, tell me about it. You told me about it. We talked about the name. I said, I want to book you on my podcast. And I said, okay.
Yeah, I was so surprised you said yes, but I was like, if I contact her on LinkedIn, she's probably never going to see
Take
my
the
message.
read, but what, like, there's, you know, you might send 1,000 emails and one comes back as a yes. Like, take the big, like, what is the biggest swing you could take on this show? It will probably come from a guest, potentially, at this moment in time. Take the really big one.
Wow.
Don't think small, because you'll be putting a self-limiting belief in place of it. But yeah, take the very big swing.
That's really
So I say out
advice.
loud, we are building $1 billion company. I say that out loud all the time, because it's a big, and we will, because I say it out loud. And so if you're going to say, I'm going to book this person, you keep saying it and you keep trying, and then you'll get closer and closer to booking that person. And
so you can just say things in the hope that the world will just make it happen, or you will make it happen, you know.
yeah, it's the big swing.
Fantastic. You've built Europe's #1 podcast, 1 billion streams. And what do you wish more people understood about the media industry?
That it is a really incredible intersection of art and science if you apply the right thinking to it. That you don't need to guess about creativity anymore. You can apply a lot of data to creativity, and it's extremely helpful. It is the other person in the room, and you should always invite it. And I think in terms of the media industry, that there's still so much innovation that's ahead of us. We're looking at the data and thinking about media as a product.
You know, with data-driven creativity, you know, some of the best creators don't have these teams that inform their decisions. You know, it just comes from like the soul. What do you think? Are we limiting creativity every time we have to have everything checked?
I think it can give you freedom to think, because you can actually test that feeling from your soul. And if you use data as something that is actually a freedom tool, because you can validate and think more creatively and use that data to make faster, better decisions in some areas that maybe you don't want to spend so much time in. I actually think about data and AI and tools and technology of giving you so much time back. So it makes everything faster for me, so I can go and spend time in a meeting talking human to human for an hour, versus I might only have had 20 minutes because I was doing a mundane task that actually is now 10x faster because I've used AI.
Brilliant. That is fantastic advice. We have a lot of founders who want to build, who listen to the podcast. And this section is called Building a Unicorn, Advice for Young Founders. So these are quick sort of tips you have to help young people build the next generational companies and podcasts. So with limited funds, how can founders make things happen?
Limited funds.
Yeah.
Sometimes your greatest limitation is your greatest innovation. You know, it's the idea that is not something that is limiting to you. Whilst it might feel like it, it is an opportunity if you look at it a different way.
Yeah.
And you're at this really unique stage, when you're very early stage, where you don't have to utilize other people's funds. It means you give all of this freedom, all of this time to kind of pursue your own idea. As soon as you start to get other people take money, it can become something else that maybe you don't own or isn't uniquely yours anymore. So if it is at all possible, think of it as an opportunity. And I promise you, once you start to scale, you'll look back at those days as the best days you ever had. So you have to ask, take the big swing, send the email, ask the person to help you. Most people are exceptionally helpful if you frame the ask in the right way. So spending time to understand, how do I ask this person to help me, versus going, hey, I was hoping you can help me, is, hey, I was thinking about the work you do and it's very inspiring to me. I really think I might be able to add some value. Do you have some, because I've been seeing that you've been doing this in this direction, and it's like, have you got 20 minutes for me?
Yeah.
Like, just put the ask in.
So add the value to the person.
Add the value, put the other person, and then put the ask in.
Brilliant. And what are 3 tips to attract experienced talent to a startup?
You have to build the vision.
Right.
And the mission. You have to give them something to pursue. Because most of the people who join a founder-led startup or a startup, it's hard. Like, it's really, you talked about in the first question, limited funds, an urgency to get the work done in order to start to scale, to get the funds that you need, is you have to build the vision and you have to build a mission. So if you can't find that or articulate it back, it's going to be so hard to find an A player to come with you, is that you have to act like a salesperson. You have to build the marketing statement, the brand strapline, the vision. Like when we say happier, healthier humanity, we absolutely mean it. And so I will I interview 10 people a week to come and work for us. My entire job really is recruiting and hiring A players, because I'm obsessed. If I find the right people to come on this mission with us and I can get them to believe in the vision, we can change the world. So you really have to be very clear on that, and then go and sell that to people.
Sell the vision.
Sell the vision.
And that's how you can attract really experienced people.
Yeah.
And are unicorn founders, do you think they're born or made? Made. And what makes one?
Obsession, urgency, belief. Like this, there's something we call the founder mentality. And it really doesn't mean that you have to have co-founded a business. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. But it's a set of characteristics, and we talked about it a little bit up front. It's like with or without you energy. I am building this anyway, and you can come if you want to. And this like obsession with the mission, obsession with the vision, an urgency that like, this is a race against time, and you are like running it and sprinting at it so hard that you might just run through a wall. You believe that in this so much you're going to mold the world around you. It comes down to those things that you have to have, those characteristics, whether you're born with them or whether you can be around them or learn them. You can definitely always learn anything in my book, it just takes time. Is that if you have those characteristics in you, then you can be a founder and you can go and build an extraordinary company. If you're lacking some aspects of them, find someone else who has them. I have a co-founder, Christiana, and she is one of the biggest motivators in my life. Like her obsession drives my obsession. So like sometimes finding someone else who can partner with you, like don't always go it alone. Pull other people, like-minded people in who complement you, but also motivate you to such a degree. I'm like, I would run through a wall for her. I would bend the world around her because I believe in her so much, and that can kind of drive an obsession that you want them to succeed and to win with them.
And where did you find your co-founder? Because
we met at work. We met at Acast in our previous jobs, and we realised very quickly that we were maybe atypical in how we thought, worked and operated, that this wasn't just jobs and work. This was, we loved podcasts. We loved what they made, how they made us feel. We loved what they could deliver for brands, for advertisers, for creators. I mean, I love the fact that it democratized media immediately. And like, I was maybe not saying the words then that I'd say now, but it was about human IP. I just wasn't saying it. I'm just like, I was talking about the democratization of media, that basically anyone with access to something like this to record their voice could now start to make media. And I felt like it was being gatekept by very powerful people with a lot of money, with very big agendas that they wanted to push and pursue. So my lack of trust had been completely eroded. I love the fact that somebody like you could say, I love talking about this. I want to inspire more people to think about starting a business, and I've got some friends who've got some tech, and I'm going to sit and do it. And I'm like, that's how it should be. And that's how Steven started, and look what he made.
That's crazy. It is genuinely crazy. Yeah. What are the red and green flags you look for founders in their companies?
I had a conversation this morning about this with Steve. Definite red flags are low accountability. So people who don't hold themselves like personally accountable and personally responsible for every single aspect of what they do every single day. People who complain and blame. It wasn't me, it was someone else, it wasn't my fault, I didn't see, it's people kind of blaming and complaining, so definite red flag. People who have high entitlement, I think, is like they think that they deserve something, or they have the right to something. Now that can be framed slightly differently, but I think they were some of my big red flags. And people who, I'm going to say this because it's important, people who talk too much to me about work-life balance.
Ooh,
because it's not that I don't believe it's important, but I believe if you're pursuing something, it's not actually work. It's a mission. And whether you turn up to do that for 20 hours a day, for 2 days a week on top of all of your other things that you're doing, it isn't about balance, it's about belief. And I think balance can be found in lots of different ways, and I always try and find it. My life is quite often unbalanced, but I believe in what this is. So I would rather pursue the belief than I would the balance. Yeah. So sometimes when I hear that quite often early on, it's actually, it's really important, and I love that. Like, choose your choice. If work-life balance is the most important thing for you, I couldn't be happier, because you know yourself, and I love that you know yourself.
But it's just not right for...
But it's not right for us, because it's about belief, and we choose belief in this mission and this vision and what we're building and pursuing this ambitious life and what it takes to get there. Your pursuit is balance, and that's great. And if you're obsessed with that, that's amazing. It's just that we're obsessed with two different things. And that's a really honest conversation we should have with people early on. It's like, this is how we live and work. This is how you want to live and work. And they're just in a different place. Doesn't mean we're not obsessed with both of those outcomes. Yeah. It's just not who we are.
I completely agree with you. There's this obsession with work-life balance, and I think everyone should pick what they want from life, isn't it?
Exactly. And I also want to say, I think particularly, this is a young team of people.
Yeah, they don't like work-life balance.
Well, I don't know, and you tell me whether this is right. I believe that a lot of you, particularly at this stage in your career, you maybe didn't know before COVID. Like, there was like generations of people like me who'd worked for 20 years before COVID hit, and every single...
first job in COVID, yeah.
So it's your first job in COVID. So you often started remote or hybrid, or certainly your first formative years of work were definitely not in person first. And there was an important conversation that needed to be happened about what work is not, and actually, are there better ways to work? It allowed it to be more accessible to people, it allowed people to put more balance in. However, what happened in that process is you've not been given a chance to experience what it was like before. And a lot of people who are making decisions about how you work and live and show your and pursue your own ambitions are being decided by people my age who, and I'm not this person necessarily, like, who are earned a right, or certainly over a period of time, whose life looks different now.
Work-life balance.
They've like gone, I have children, I need more balance, and all of these things are really brilliant decisions, and it's important that you make them, and you have kids and you want to be with your children more. Absolutely right. But I don't know whether these people should be deciding how you work and how you show up, because they had 20 years of like crafting and honing their skills, being around like-minded, ambitious people, learning and failing and being in pursuit of a dream. And then they got it. And then their dream is different now.
And now they can relax. You know, I've seen that with celebrities or people who really crafting amazing things, is the fact that at the beginning of your career, you weren't working 8 hours or 6 hours, you weren't doing this. So why now tell people who maybe want to get to where you are to do this? Because that's not what you did to get there.
And I just think it's an honest conversation. It's not wrong. It's not right. I'm not right. You're not wrong. I just think telling 22, 23-year-olds that it's about hybrid and work-life balance, I think is misguided. Because I'm not sure that you'll be able to...
get where you need to get to with it.
Maybe not. But that's my personal perspective, and it's not lined up with other people's, and that maybe makes me atypical, and that's fine, and I'm completely comfortable with that. But that, I don't know, you decide. I'm like, I think it's up for like the 22, 23, 20... They decide. Maybe they can try something else. Maybe they can come and work for Flight Story Studio, and we're in person first, and we believe that building together is the way, and that is one of our first principles, because I believe that having community, being around like-minded, ambitious people in pursuit of a goal together, there is no better feeling than that in the world.
So what's next for you in Flight Story?
We're going to continue to grow our shows, and we're going to invest in more IP. We're signing new names. All the big list of announcements coming very soon. We're developing some really interesting technology. One of them is called Guest Radar. So one of the really big decisions you make that can have a transformational impact on your show is the guest that you have. And almost if you didn't have to guess, that you could actually have data and tools to show you who are really high-performing guests in a certain category or topic. And we've built a tool now that can identify if we wanted somebody on body language, for example, and obviously there's thousands of people around the world who are experts in that field, who are the best performing people on that topic even if you've never heard their name before. So they don't have to be very high profile people. We've built a tool that can look at YouTube and social data and can find people who are experts in that topic, but also when they go and talk about it on channels and on YouTube shows, that they overperform versus the rest of that guest. So that show could have 1,000 views a week, but for whatever reason, this guest has gone on and has given them 10,000 views. We want to book that guest because they're an overperformer. So now we've built tools and technology to enable them to find that versus all of the human effort of research. So that team can find these people and they can spend so much more time qualifying this person's expertise, building the most exceptional research brief. So when they sit in the chair, the chances are this person's going to absolutely bang.
Wow, a guest radar technology. That's fantastic. And the final question on the podcast, do you have any words of wisdom for aspiring entrepreneurs and podcast creators?
Keep testing, keep experimenting, keep pursuing the 1%. Consistency is key. And have a big vision and mission that you want to put into the world and take a massive swing at it. You have to have something you can repeat and say. So I've said a few times, like happier, healthier humanity, pursue a more fulfilling life, because I believe that is possible with the work that we're putting into the world. And you'll have something that you'll be able to say over and over and over again till it's either true or someone else believes it.
Brilliant, brilliant. And before we leave for the next episode, Georgie, you're going to teach us to build a $1 million podcast in 7 months. So stay tuned for that episode. But I just want to say thank you so much, Georgie.
Thank
you.
You
have been an inspiration in the podcast world to me. And yeah, I can't wait to put this episode out there.
Thank you so much. You've been, can I just tell you, you are really building an exceptional skill set here. So keep testing, keep learning. I absolutely know that in a few years' time, we'll be signing you to Flight Story, and I'll be like, I remember when we first met. So keep going, keep pursuing, keep building that vision, and you'll get there.
Thank you, Georgie. Yay.
Thank you.